Why do leg press alternatives online suck?
Enter Steve Hoyles, gym owner with 20 years PT experience and qualified weightlifting coach. He gave me 7 legit alternatives which actually replicate the movement, unlike what I found on Google. And they could be progressed, unlike more stuff I found on Google. A few years ago, I hated front squats. So I asked Steve why it's top of his list.
It's technically one of the more challenging squat patterns to do. The overall benefits are really, really good. A lot of core work. It's quite a simple movement to perform. It's just, it will highlight your movement efficiencies. If you've got the lat flexibility, I'd always go with the rack position. So in here, tend to turn toes out ever so slightly. Try and keep your chest up as much as you can. And you can overcomplicate it. I think sit down into the movement. Just sit into the movement as deep as you can, and then back up. It's as simple as that with a front squat.
Personally, I used to really struggle with wrist mobility.
You know if your rack grip's good because it takes a lot of pressure off you, especially off your shoulders. You see some people and they're in this position. That's a horrible position to be holding a bar in. There's a rack, it's on your shoulders. So effectively, you could squat like this. If you can't get a full rack position, what you want to do then is use a cross grip. So you're trying to get one hand in towards one shoulder, the other hand in towards the other shoulder, and hold the bar up, and then sit down. It's not preferable, but if you can't get a full rack, use that as the option.
Steve then gave just one simple thing to focus on.
Higher the elbows the better, I think, because it does that job of keeping the weight on your chest and off your shoulders for you.
So just as you're going down, you're thinking about just keeping your elbows up.
High as you can.
Dropping.
It might well drop, and that's not optimal, it's not ideal. You want to try and keep it up as high as you can.
I had trouble getting my bum low like this at first, but he gave me a cool idea for anyone whose ankles are stiffer than the robot dance.
If you've got one of these, better still, but that'll help. Good weightlifting shoes. Yeah, what I don't like about a plate is too close together. You can get around that by using 2 individual fractional plates. But the wedge is better.
I then asked if he thinks this is the main alternative that most people should use.
The reason you go to front squat is you go to, there's sheer weight involved. It's a good strength exercise.
If you also hate front squats, I urge you to lower the weight and stick with them. It's helped me for my back squats and overall flexibility, which helps pretty much everything in day-to-day life. If you're still feeling overwhelmed by what to do, then just listen to the next 5 seconds on repeat.
Don't complicate it. Do what you can. Keep your chest up. Keep your breathing consistent. Point your toes out ever so slightly and just sit into the movement.
Now, if you want an alternative that is more controlled and doesn't put such a strain on your lower back, don't worry because we've got you covered later. But first, the next exercise is probably the one that's built the most mass to my legs in recent years. And Steve shares the most common mistake that he sees with this.
When it comes to getting into position, what you see a lot of people do is they kind of struggle for balance and all over the shop. I tend to tell people, get a foot on there, once you're in this position here, get yourself nice and stable and stand up. Then you know you're in a nice balanced position.
Does the distance away from the bench really matter?
You get a better hip flexor stretch the further away you are. All comes down to mobility, but yeah, as long as you can get a full range of movement, that's what I'm interested in. And it feels relatively comfortable.
How do you add weight to the Bulgarian split squat?
So you've got lots of different options. You can use a barbell, you can use dumbbells, you can use kettlebells, you can front rack them, you can hold it, whatever works for you.
I then just asked Steve why he likes this as an exercise.
It's unilateral, you train both sides equally. I like the hip flexor stretch. It's a challenge. It challenges your core because of the balance, etc. So yeah.
I also noticed my knees were going over my toes.
No problem at all with it.
Is that a good idea?
Encourage it.
Knees over toes, guy?
Yeah. So these are wonders for that because really recently we started these old school PTs. No, your knees should never go over your toes. Utter nonsense.
Some exercises later will also encourage getting your knees in front of your toes, and they're also really good for getting more depth in your squats. But the next 2 focus on keeping your knees behind your toes.
I've only got short legs, so you want to set your step height to the point where you get a 90-degree bend in the knee. So straight up, so you can do it straight up and straight down, or you can alternate. So for example, you'd lead with one leg, and then maintain that for your reps and then lead with the other leg.
Main coaching points?
It's got to have a full knee bend, so 90 degrees. Don't push off the bottom like that. The idea of drive from the front leg.
What's the best way to add weight to step-ups?
So you've got lots of different options. you could use a barbell. I wouldn't recommend a barbell. You could do it if you've got really good balance. Dumbbells, kettlebells, you can go one-sided, you can have two, one in each hand, whatever works for you. You can use a sandbag, you can use a weight vest.
Next up is a total quad isolation movement. But first, are you always looking for exercise alternatives? With a home gym, I was always doing this as well. That's why we've created a one-stop shop with over 50 exercise alternatives. All of these alternatives target the same part of the muscle group, they use the same movement pattern, and there are options if you have little or no equipment. Get access to this in the first link in the description below.
You need a good strong band. You want to wrap it around a good sturdy anchor point, so in this case we're using a steel row. You can quite a long way back and position this band just below your knees. You have a lot of tension in it because the idea is this is going to support my body weight. It's going to allow me to sit back and straight up.
What are the coaching points for Spanish squats?
Don't let your knees go over your toes.
Remember, you put this in the 12-week dumbbell program.
Yeah.
I think there was like 50 reps or
50
something.
reps.
Oh my word.
And when people see
I've
that,
never,
no,
ever.
surely he means 5, but no, it's 50.
I messaged you.
Yeah.
I said, are you sure you mean 50?
It's tough. It's
I got
hard
about
work.
30 in and I was like, oh, the
Yeah.
burn.
So I asked the sadistic man why he recommends so many reps for this.
For a long time, we're seen predominantly as a rehab exercise because it allowed you to do a lot of squat work where you really focus on the quads. They isolated the quads and they'd help things like patellar tendonitis.
And can you add weight to it?
If you get to the point where you can do 50 reps without an issue, then I go with a light dumbbell or kettlebell, either one, because it's kind of like a goblet squat. The reason I wouldn't add weight automatically is because the goblet squat is a completely different exercise anyway.
This takes us nicely onto the next exercise.
You can use dumbbells or you can use kettlebells for the goblet squat. Either one works, it doesn't really matter. The good thing about using a dumbbell for this movement is you're in a nice position in front of you. Do a lot of core activation and try and keep the elbows inside of the knees.
Hey, remember I mentioned that there's a perfect exercise if you find squats tricky?
Is if people are really struggling with their depth, this can help them because it gives you a really easy target. It's get those elbows to the inside of the knees. And some people won't be able to go as deep as you have done there, but at least they've got a psychological target to aim for.
We'll be making a video on how to get more squat depth soon, so make sure you tap the subscribe button so you make sure you don't miss it. Now, I bet you're still here because you want a controlled way without having to put so much force on your lower back and add a decent amount of weight to some of these exercises.
It's a really simple movement.
That
and
seems just like a leg press as well.
yeah, it's exactly the same. The landmine squat, you need landmine attachment. If you don't have one of these, you can use a tennis ball, as actually if they look on one of your other videos, you'll show them. Where people get this movement wrong is they quite often try and stand too upright. What you've got to appreciate is that the landmine is going to work on an arc. So to get the most out of it, personally, I think you should lean into it slightly because watch what happens. So you can get full depth there. Now try and stand with your feet there and try and squat there now.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see what I mean? That's why you need to lean
Barbell's
into it.
coming out, yeah.
And that's a fundamental problem because people try and stand bolt upright. They don't get the range of movement at all. Like you're getting full depth there.
I haven't really done landmine squats in a program before, so something felt a little bit weird to me about it.
Feet back here.
Feet back, lean into it slightly.
So
Feet
it's
slightly
like
wider apart.
if I was to let go of this, I would fall forward.
You would fall forward, yeah.
And that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Steve has a ton of equipment in his gym, so I wondered if there were any other machines that he might recommend ahead of a leg press, just in case you ever wanted to upgrade your gym.
If you don't have a leg press, but you're lucky enough to be able to afford a pendulum squat, it's a machine I really like. A lot of people have described them as a standing leg press, and I can kind of see where that is. You've got a leg press, but truth be told, I prefer to use this one. So I tend to sit in the middle here and sit right down and then back up. You get a really good range of movement here as well.
I also asked when he would use this during a leg workout.
I tend to use it at the end if I want to have a bit of a burnout because it's a really safe way
Right,
of
just to
training
add
to
weight.
failure.
Remember, you can get access to over 50 exercise alternatives using the first link in the description below. They are conveniently organized by muscle group to save you a ton of time whenever you use a workout program that recommends an exercise that you can't do. But even when you have all of these exercise alternatives, it's a total waste of time if you don't actually use your home gym. That's why you need the 10 cheapest items of equipment that you'll actually use every week. Find out what they are by watching this video next.